The film opens with Drasa, an elite sniper, in her secret hideout. She wakes up and prepares for her mission. She adjusts her sniper rifle and aims it at an approaching private jet. As soon as the target is in sight, she fires. The body collapses. She takes the spent bullet as confirmation of her work. Meanwhile, Levi, a former Marine sniper, can't sleep. He spends the night driving fast through the city. In the morning, he returns to the beach and writes notes. His routine is repetitive, until he gets a call. At a military base, he meets Bartholomew, a mysterious woman with no insignia on her uniform. She asks Levi about his past and his work as a contract killer. She reveals that she was discharged from the service due to a lack of purpose. But now, Bartholomew has a new offer for him, a mission.
Have you tried nitrazepam?
Have you ever killed someone at long range?
Meanwhile, Drasa visits the graves of her mother and ailing father. She recounts his last mission and gives the spent bullets away. His father collects them as keepsakes, but there's a problem. She was caught on a security camera, and now she's been ordered to hide for a year. He doesn't know how to do that, especially since his father is about to be killed. He decides to play Russian roulette on Valentine's Day to end his suffering. Months later, Levi wakes up in a helicopter. A female pilot gives him equipment and instructions.
Watch your smartphone and your ID in the case.
Where are we?
I'm not authorized to answer that.
He has to travel 38 kilometers by parachute. He follows the orders. He jumps and falls into a wide canyon shrouded in fog. On the other side, JD, the man Levi will replace, is waiting. JD explains the location. There are 2 outposts on either side of the canyon, powered by solar panels and generators from various groups in Europe. Each outpost has an observer, but communication between them is forbidden. There is a small garden, and the area is teeming with wildlife. The observer's job is to ensure security, inspect the fence daily, replace the automated machine guns, and check the mines. If anyone tries to escape from the canyon, the observer will be the first to know. Once a month, there is a communication check on the only channel. The entire perimeter is covered with signal masking antennas, so it cannot be detected from above. And here, the real game begins. JD warns Levi about the security of the area. He explains that if the system fails, or the perimeter is breached from below, an aerial alarm will activate. This will trigger the Wild Dog Protocol, where the only option is to run as far away as possible. JD also reveals that the facility was built in the 1940s after World War II. The West and the USSR had a secret agreement, so secret that even the presidents didn't know about it. Their mission was to keep an eye on what they called hollow men. No one knows what they are, but when 3 cavalry battalions were sent into the canyon after the war, not a single soldier ever returned. JD leaves, leaving Levi in a place that feels like the gateway to hell. The next day, Levi watches JD leave, unaware that by the time he reaches the evacuation point, he won't get the promised rest or pay. Instead, a bullet will end his life, a silent execution of an order reported directly to Bartholomew. October arrives. Patrolling the perimeter, checking for mines, and maintaining automated turrets had become part of Levi's routine. The monthly communications check was also a repetitive task. Bored, he read the books left behind in the small library. One day, he noticed something written on the back of a bookshelf, favorite quotes left by former observers. As he surveyed the area through binoculars, he noticed Drasa, a charming sniper across the canyon. He felt as if he were being watched, so he turned around. But without binoculars, he couldn't see her. One night during a storm, Levi woke up from a PTSD attack. While drinking water, he accidentally broke a glass and injured his foot. November. Drasa's birthday arrived. She had brought cake and champagne, and in her drunken state, she felt the urge to talk to Levi, the only other person in the area. To get his attention, she fired a bullet into the air and showed him a piece of paper with a message. Using binoculars, Levi read it and replied. Though such communication was forbidden, he couldn't help himself. He raised a bottle of moonshine and a toast. Their little celebration continued. Drasa became more playful, playing music, dancing, and challenging Levi to a shooting contest. She aimed at a glass and broke it with a precise shot. Levi responded, aiming at his bottle and hitting it. Drasa upped the ante, balancing another bottle on his head. But before Levi could fire, the searchlight under his tower suddenly activated. Out of the darkness, creatures crawled up the canyon walls. Without hesitation, Levi fired a mine that blew up several attackers. Drasa joined in, using the heavy machine guns on his tower. They nearly cleared the wave of creatures, but one of them climbed onto Drasa's balcony. She quickly drew her gun and fired at it, while Levi provided covering fire. In the midst of the battle, Levi was hit in the shoulder by shrapnel, but in the end, the creatures were defeated, with the automated turrets finishing off the rest. Drasa thanked Levi. It was a birthday she would never forget. The next day, as they cleared the battlefield, they noticed a drone floating out of the thick fog below. It hovered for a moment, then suddenly flew away, disappearing as mysteriously as it had arrived. December. Levi decorated a tree outside his tower with a spare light bulb as a holiday message to Drasa. They spent the rest of the month playing chess from afar and building snowmen as a symbol of their unusual union. Valentine's Day arrived. Drasa was deeply saddened. She knew her father was dying. In her letter to Levi, she confessed that she wished she had someone with her at this time. But her words were strung together, a confession she could not finish. His military training was key to his creative solution. Levi carefully picked up a grenade and removed the explosive part from the launcher round. He took a rope, unspooled it, and tied one end to his turret. He attached the other end to the launcher, fired it, and Drasa, watching from the other side, saw the projectile land near his feet. After making sure the rope was securely tied, he now had a makeshift cable connecting their separate worlds on either side of the cliff. Before crossing, Levi left a handwritten invitation to dinner. He clipped his carabiner to the rope, took a deep breath, and pushed himself to slide over the abyss. But he misjudged his momentum and got stuck in the middle. Despite his apprehension, he was forced to crawl using only his hands, something that had become natural to him after months of solitude. Finally, he reached the other side, and for the first time, Levi and Drasa came face to face. Drasa prepared a rabbit pie, but before they ate, she handed Levi some clothes that the guards had left behind so he could clean up. When they were done, they began to eat while talking about their pasts, their fathers, their origins, and the events that had brought them to this place. As the night wore on, their conversation turned to dancing, and from there, to a deeper, more personal connection. Later, Levi admitted that he was writing poetry. He had one more thing for Drasa, but he was too embarrassed to say it. In the morning, Levi prepared to return before the scheduled communication time. But as he crossed, they realized it was too late. A new attack had occurred. The creatures attacked again, climbing the wall of his tower. Levi rushed to the tower just as it exploded, and the rope snapped. He fell into the thick fog, but at the last moment, he managed to open his parachute. Without hesitation, Drasa grabbed her own parachute and jumped after him. They fell into a rushing river covered in a yellow cloud of mist. During the fall, Drasa lost her ascender, a vital tool, adding to the panic. Meanwhile, Levi woke up hanging upside down from the trees, his parachute tangled. As he freed himself, a giant mutant worm suddenly appeared and attacked. He barely managed to shoot it before it broke free, but as he fell, he landed in a sticky substance. He struggled, but its grip only tightened. It wasn't just mud, but a living organism hungry for flesh. As the monster was about to devour him, Drasa arrived and shot its razor-like jaws, pulling Levi out. They continued running through the dark and treacherous forest, heading toward the eastern cliff to try to climb. But before they could get far, they were ambushed by strange creatures, riders wielding wooden sabers, resembling twisted versions of Pinocchio. In the midst of the battle, Drasa realized she had lost her ascender. Now, they had no way to scale the 500-meter rock wall. Their only option was to find another way out. While inspecting the fallen enemies, Levi discovered a bitter truth. These were former soldiers, part of a battalion that had disappeared 80 years ago. They continued deeper into the dark forest, where the trees resembled frozen corpses. They finally reached an old military base, where torn flags of Britain, the USSR, and the United States fluttered softly in the wind. The cracked asphalt indicated that a long-ago earthquake had shaken the area. As they explored, they came across an old church. Inside, the pews were filled with skeletons, people who had once sought shelter but had ended in tragedy. Judging by the traces of cyanide around, it seemed that these people had chosen to end their lives rather than fall into the hands of whatever creatures lurked in this place. As they ventured deeper into the building, a group of creatures resembling giant spiders suddenly attacked. Their bodies, however, were made of skulls. Before they could recover from their shock, the large doors opened, and the so-called Hollow Men, shadows of former humans now driven by a darker force, entered. Knowing they couldn't fight back, they quickly blasted a wall with a grenade, creating a hole, and ran toward the cliff. There, they discovered an old bunker door, covered in overgrown vegetation. Inside, they found an abandoned research facility, covered in vines, dust, and antique photos. A faded photo from the 1945 Yalta Conference offered a clue as to what might be causing all of this. As Levi searched around, he came across an old film. Meanwhile, Drasa found a propane-powered generator. Together, they activated an ancient projector, which flashed and displayed a recorded message from a long-lost scientist. In the message, the scientist explained that in 1946, after the creation of the atomic bomb in the West, the Soviet Union had built a secret base to develop a biochemical weapon as a direct weapon of destruction. However, a powerful earthquake caused a disaster, a leak of infectious chemicals that poisoned the entire valley. The inhabitants were not only affected but also merged with the plants, becoming carriers of a deadly disease. According to the scientist, while exposure to the gas is not immediately fatal, prolonged exposure permanently alters a person's DNA. While inspecting the surroundings, Levi noticed something that didn't fit with the old technology: modern equipment from a private corporation called Dark Lake. This meant that the area had recently been reactivated for research. While studying the documents, he discovered a protocol called Wild Dog. If the facility's security was compromised, an automatic process would activate a nuclear warhead capable of wiping out everything within a 4-kilometer radius. With time running out, the two decided to leave before the contamination worsened. But as they emerged, they realized the mutants weren't as mindless as they had thought. In the distance, they saw Drasa leave behind her bag of ammunition, an obvious trap. As she tried to retrieve it, a skeletal rider suddenly grabbed her leg and pulled her into the thick fog. Levi immediately fired the rope, but it wasn't enough to stop the creatures. He watched as Drasa disappeared into the smoke, so he followed without hesitation. He tracked the abductor's footprints until he reached a massive missile silo from which poisonous red smoke continued to rise. Meanwhile, Drasa woke up, tied up. The riders surrounding her were no ordinary warriors, but creatures that seemed to be rotting and gradually becoming part of a larger organism. She wasted no time. She forced her way free and fought with all her might. But as she struggled, she noticed that the mutants seemed to be enjoying her suffering. Just as she was in danger, Levi suddenly arrived. A bullet pierced the skull of the creature that should have killed Drasa. They immediately fled the trap, but before they could get far, a powerful earthquake began. One of the missiles was damaged, causing the entire valley to be contaminated. As they traveled, they came across a monstrous landscape, lands covered in flesh, moving as though they had a life of their own. They stepped carefully so as not to disturb the creatures deep below. But one misstep by Drasa made their situation worse. His foot fell into a tangled web of organic strands. He tried to break free, but its grip tightened even more. Levi immediately slashed at the tendrils with his saber. But instead of freeing Drasa, the living organism only became angrier. In a bold decision, Drasa fired a grenade at the source of the webbing. A loud explosion woke the sleeping monsters around them. As the area burst into flames, they quickly ran, hoping to escape before any creatures above could catch up. During their escape, they stumbled upon an old garage filled with ancient military vehicles. Levi quickly devised a plan. If they could get a jeep running and use its winch, they could climb the cliff even without their ascender. While Levi attached a cable to the jeep, Drasa took up position with his rifle, prepared for the approaching monsters. Crawling up the sheer face of the cliff, a sight that seemed to defy the laws of physics. But the Hollow Men wouldn't give up. They followed the two, climbing the rope attached to the vehicle. Knowing they couldn't afford to be caught, Levi increased the vehicle's speed as they continued their climb. In one last desperate move, they cut the winch, sending the creatures plummeting back into the abyss. Unfortunately, Levi almost slipped off the cliff in the process. As he clung to the edge, his gun fell and struck a fuel canister below. Suddenly, the mutants burst into flames, but the jeep was also caught in the explosion. They had no choice but to cut the last remaining rope and crawl up with their remaining strength. Finally, they reached the summit. Levi began to bandage Drasa's wound as they discussed their next move. They knew they couldn't just walk away. If they returned to camp, their superiors wouldn't let them live after learning what they had discovered. Drasa suggested escaping, but Levi disagreed. He knew that no matter what they did, someone else would be sent to continue the experiment. The valley would remain a cursed place until it was completely destroyed. There was only one way to end this. Armed with a grappling gun, Levi secured a line across the cliff and returned to his post just in time for the scheduled communication. But instead of following protocol, Levi connected directly to Bartholomew. He tried to pretend he hadn't discovered anything, but he didn't know that he had been watched. Surveillance footage had recorded their descent into the valley, and now his superiors knew everything. The order was cold: leave the east. The observer knew that his men would not follow, so he prepared a move to ensure the outcome. At the same time, he formed a strike team to be sent the next day. Meanwhile, Levi and Drasa were on either side of the cliff, moving quickly to connect the explosives to the relay towers. But before they could finish, a helicopter appeared in the sky, followed by the arrival of the kill team from the western outpost. Levi had been gone for a long time. He ordered drones to be deployed to search for them in the mountains. Levi and Drasa pressed on, but soon heavy gunfire from the drones' mounted weapons rained down. One of the bullets hit a tree, which fell and grazed Levi's leg. Although wounded, he managed to shoot down both drones while Drasa finished off the last one with a precise shot. When they reached their target location, they prepared their final defense. Meanwhile, Bartholomew investigated the room Levi had left behind. Behind a bookshelf, he discovered hidden messages from previous observers. A handwritten note caught his attention, but before he could fully comprehend it, the relay towers were detonated. The explosion ripped through the mountains, setting off a chain reaction along the entire perimeter. One by one, the towers collapsed, destroying the satellite jamming signal and exposing the valley to the outside world. As the last tower fell, an air raid siren blared. The Stray Dog Protocol was activated. Bartholomew's mercenaries rushed to their helicopter to escape, but it was too late. The fail-safe nuclear bomb had detonated. A searing light engulfed the entire valley. In an instant, everything in its path was consumed. The shockwave hit the helicopter, spinning it in midair before crashing into a cliff. Levi, who had barely escaped the blast, was thrown by the force and fell into a river below. Drassa survived. From afar, she watched the raging inferno consume the valley. Time passed. In a secluded cave, Drassa waited. Every day she marked the wall, counting the days. She clutched tightly to a sealed envelope, the letter Levi had left behind. She pondered for a long time whether to open it, and as the weeks turned into months, finally, under the setting sun, she opened it. Inside, she found the very poems Levi had written all along. And finally, they met again. Drassa had left her past behind. One night, while working as a waitress at a cafe in France, she delivered an order to a table. She looked up, and there, she saw Levi, alive. In the last moments of the day, as the sun sank into the ocean, their story ended. And there, the movie ended.